Good evening. Welcome to the Kent County Board of Adjustment public hearing, October 17th, 2024. At this time, can you please call roll for determination of a quorum?
Yes, sir. Mr. Gallo?
Here.
Mr. Carter?
Here.
Mr. Jones?
Here.
Mr. Jenkins?
Here.
And Mr. Cusick?
Here.
Thank you. That's 5 present.
Thank you. Introduction of staff, please.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jamie Fensky. I'm one of the planners for Kent County. To my right is Jesse Lindenberg, another planner for Kent County. To my left is Mark Kennedy, our IT staff for the evening. And to the far right is Fred Townsend, our legal counsel for the evening.
Thank you. At this time, can everyone please stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance? Any additions or alterations to tonight's agenda?
No, sir.
Public hearing introduction.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jamie Fensky, and I'll preside as the hearing officer for tonight's public hearing. This hearing is being conducted for the purpose of providing the citizens of the county an opportunity to present testimony on these applications before the Kent County Board of Adjustment. Everyone will have an opportunity to speak. This will provide those who wish an opportunity to give their testimony. If there is a group of interested citizens in favor or opposed to any of the applications, they may wish to elect one spokesperson among them to present testimony to the board. There is an official recording of these proceedings being made. Therefore, we ask that only one person speak at a time and that they speak clearly. Furthermore, there should be no cross-examination of witnesses permitted during the public hearing, but the board can ask the applicant questions after any opposition if necessary. As courtesy to other participants in this hearing, a maximum of 5 minutes will be allotted to any person who wishes to provide testimony. The chairperson of the board has the discretion to allow additional time if deemed to be necessary. To make statements when your application is called, and for the record, please give your name, address, and allow our attorney to swear you in prior to providing testimony. Copies of any written statements or exhibits used during the hearing should be presented for identification so that they may be included in the permanent record. The procedure on each variance application will be as follows. The legal notice will be read on each case prior to the receipt of testimony. There will be a brief explanation of the application by the staff. The board will then receive testimony from all of those in favor of the application, followed by testimony of those who may be opposed. Once those persons in favor and those in opposition have had an opportunity to speak, the hearing on that application will be declared closed. Decisions on all applications heard this evening will be made by the board during the business meeting following the public hearing. However, you are not required to remain after the public hearing once your request has been heard and closed. During the business meeting, the board will consider all information of record. A common vote of 4 members of the board shall be required to make a decision on each application. If you do not wish to wait for the business meeting later this evening, you may call the Kent County Planning Department tomorrow between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. at 744-2471. All applicants will receive written notification of the board's decision. This notice may not be mailed until after the next scheduled meeting, but if approved, you are welcome to apply for any necessary permits prior to receiving this by mail. Please keep this decision in your records for both you and all future property owners. The public notice of this evening's hearing was published on September 29th, 2024 in the Delaware State News. In addition, all of the subject properties were posted with a sign prior to the hearing to further notify the public of the nature of the applications. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. At this time, we'll have statement by counsel. Mr. Townsend?
Thank you, Mr. Cusick. The test for the granting of area variances is set forth by the Delaware Supreme Court in the case known as Board of Adjustment versus Quick Check Realty. The legal standard for area variances considers whether a literal interpretation of zoning regulations results in exceptional practical difficulties of ownership. And to determine whether the exceptional practical difficulty test is met, the board will consider the following 4 factors. First, the nature of the zone where the property lies. Second, the character and uses in the immediate vicinity. Third, whether removal of the restriction on the applicant's property would seriously affect neighboring properties. And lastly, whether failure to remove the restrictions would create exceptional practical difficulty for the owner in relation to the owner's efforts to make normal improvements to the property. This factor is met only when difficulties alleged by the owner are practical rather than theoretical and exceptional rather than routine. The inability to improve one's business may qualify as an exceptional practical difficulty. And also, this consideration is where the board considers whether the applicant is seeking more relief than is reasonably necessary to relieve the asserted difficulty. In general, the board is not permitted to consider factors other than the 4 that I listed. Therefore, those speaking both in support of and in opposition to applications are urged to present only information bearing directly on those 4 factors, being, again, number 1, the nature of the zoning district, 2, characteristics of the area, 3, whether the requested variances seriously affect neighboring properties, and 4, whether applicants are confronted with challenges rising to the level of exceptional practical difficulties. In particular, presenters are instructed to exclude from their presentations any discussion of personal disputes or acrimony between the applicant and neighboring property owners, as the board's not authorized to resolve those disputes. Mr. Cusick, that concludes my statement.
Thank you. At this time, we'll begin the public hearing.
Okay, first up, we have application A-24-38 for the Millers. Is there someone present for that application? Thank you. So this is for Robert and Dolores Miller. Present zoning district is AR, Agricultural Residential. Proposed variance is a variance from the requirement that an accessory structure shall not be located in the front yard or front setback unless located 100 feet from the front property line to enable the construction of a dwelling. Present use is residential storage. Proposed use is same with a dwelling. Levy Court District 6 for Mr. Hertz. Located on the west side of Proctor's Purchase Road, approximately 0.5 miles north of Halltown Road, south of Hartley. You will see here that the existing, there is several existing accessory buildings on the property. The closest one to the front property line is 73 feet from the front property line. They are seeking to construct a home 155 feet from the front property line, being behind the accessory building. This is the dwelling that was demolished in 2020. You'll see there, and then the closest building to the front property line is that one to the right. This is an aerial from March of 2019. This is looking down the road and in the other direction. At the front of the property, the subject building that's 73 feet is there to the left. This is looking to the right of the driveway, to the left of that accessory building. Again, looking from the road, and the current aerial. So if one of you folks would like to come forward, state your name and address, and allow our attorney to swear you in, please.
Good evening. Sure. My name is Robert Conrad Miller, and my address is 697 West Ennis Road, Dover, Delaware, 19904.
Mr. Miller, I'm over here. If I could have your attention.
Yeah.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I will.
Very good. Comments to these folks here?
Okay. So I didn't know what all I should say, but as you know, I would like a variance to keep this storage unit as is. And some of the reasons, this building has been existing for a long while now, and it's still structurally sound with concrete floors and truss roof. It has some memories for me growing up, and for me it doesn't really impose on where the house location is in accordance with this shed. The reasons I have in building the house behind would be for safety for my children. I have 6 children. And right now we're in a 1,000 square foot house, and we're looking to expand if we could. And so that would be close to the road to put this proposed new house in line with that, as was stated in the paperwork I had received in the mail. But there is a safety factor there. I would prefer to be back off the road. And also just to be close to nature as well. It'd be closer to the woods, and we definitely enjoy wildlife as a family. The front shed doesn't seem like it is, I mean, it's like 73 feet off the front of the property line, and I don't understand what 27 feet would make a difference, because it would still be in front of the house. And aesthetically, I'm not sure if that's the reason, or if it being mistaken for the main dwelling. I know that was brought up in the letter I received. To me, I would think you could identify a house versus a shed in that regard. There is an electrical meter and service attached to this front shed, so it would be difficult. I'd have to call the power company. That's going to be a challenge there. And then plus with the concrete floor, it would be quite the cost to have to relocate this back, which in financing the new building and with the way the economy is and the cost of living, especially with 6 children, you can imagine my concern with how this is all going to happen. And then having this delay, we were planning on starting this spring, and here we are in the fall. So there would be an extra cost to move, and I'm not saying it can't be done, but it's just another burden that I would have to deal with there. And as you can see, the house, I mean, it's not direct, the shed is not directly in front of the proposed house. It's off to the side, so it's not blocking the view of the front, if that's another reason. And I will bring this up compared to what the property was 6 years ago and longer, probably 15 years, that place was a mess. There were drug-related activities with this property. There were campers. There was an outdoor shower built. Trash everywhere. The neighbors were concerned, and me moving and being able to purchase this property has caused a sense of relief for these neighbors with the drug-related illegal activity that was going on there. So I'm really doing them a favor, and I have received comments from neighbors that are close on that road that are very appreciative of what's taking place here. So I guess that's all I would have to present to you. I pray, yeah, that makes sense, and that's all I have.
Yep, thank you. Any questions?
Yes, Mr. Miller.
Yeah.
What is the composition of that outbuilding that's closest to the road? Can you describe that building to me?
It is wood trusses on the roof. It's 10 sides. There is a concrete floor. There are, I think it's 6x6 posts on the corners, and in the middle, just kind of a standard pole shed. But still in really good condition. And there is a garage door that opens and closes. And yeah, it definitely useful.
So with that in mind, do you have any specific plans for that building, what you would do with it?
I would like to probably just like storage for lawn tractor, also maybe a crabbing boat. I do like to enjoy crabbing, so it's nice to have that available. I can just back right up, have the boat stored in there, and be able to just be right there. And, you know, that would be a potential plan for that. But yeah, just to have that extra storage facility is nice.
Just a couple more questions. From Proctor Purchase Road, I was viewing this part from the road. Is there any landscaping or anything that disguises this building, or is it highly visible from the road?
Well, there is a row of barrier trees that are planted. Now, some of them are starting to get a little rough, and they're, as you saw in the picture, some of them are starting to fall over. So I'm going to need to deal with that at some point, but they are blocking. The only way you can see the building is if you actually look down the lane. So in the blink of an eye, you're past it and you don't even see it, as you can see. And there's also on the, I guess if you're facing the building on the right side, there would also be bushes planted along there as well. So I would probably continue to keep that the way it is, or plant something later. Yeah. As things die out, just have something else there. But but as of right now, the property is not really that visible from the road.
Now, you're going to also construct a house. Did you give us the dimensions of that? What size are you planning on building?
It's 2,700 square feet.
And there was also a comment earlier about a electrical meter being on the outbuilding. Which outbuilding was that? Do you have, can you point out on the screen where that meter service is? Right there.
Right there.
So is your current plan contact the electrical contractor, think that existing service would serve your new house, or you don't know?
Oh, yes, it will serve my new house, yes.
What amperage do you have? Do you have 200 amp, 400 amp? Do you know?
320. It's a 320 meter, so almost 400 amp, yeah.
So that 2,700 square foot home and whatever else is going on there, I would think 320 amps should be sufficient. So you probably just maybe, I guess, have to splice in it or something. Do you have any idea?
Yeah, so when we build the house, all we need to do is trench from that, well, it wouldn't be 155 feet, it would just be 100 feet, maybe 80, 100 at the most, maybe to the new house, and it's ready to go. So, yeah. That's the electrical is all set up for what we're planning on doing there.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Anyone else?
Jamie, can you go back to the pictures from the road, if you could? Looking up the driveway, there you go. That's the existing driveway, and you would still use that driveway, is that correct?
Yes. I would, obviously, once construction starts, all that will look a little better than what it is now.
All right, thank you.
And if you looked at that proposed, where the house is, it's ideal that that lane is perfect. You can just drive and then turn the left right into the new house garage. So, I mean, it doesn't need to, it can stay as it is.
Good. Any other questions?
So in regards to the comments by the staff, in terms of moving the house more in line with the outbuilding, was your main concern safety? I think you mentioned that at the beginning.
Yeah. That's a big one.
Thank you.
Sir, that picture, is that showing the shed that you're being directed to remove, you're hoping to keep?
Yes, the one on the left, this is the one I would need to move.
Okay. And did you say that was 10 by 10?
No, I think I had measured it. I think it's 24 by, I think 24 by 16 or, it might be 24 by 30. I'm not, sorry.
So I just misunderstood you. I thought you said it was 10 by 10 and you wanted to put your boat in it, but it's a much larger.
Yeah, it's not 10 by 10. It's bigger than that. So.
And your boat's going to fit in that?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Yep.
And that building adds value to the property.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
What's the speed limit on Proctor's Chance Road? Or
Proctor's Purchase.
You know what that is?
Around the curves, I think it's like 35, but I think 40 or 45 is what I'm thinking. I mean, there's not a whole lot of traffic on that road. It's pretty quiet, which me and my wife like very much. But yeah, it's not really a main route to anything. Actually, that road is a dead-end road once you keep going west.
Very good. Any other questions? Good, thank you.
All right.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition of this application? Seeing no one, we will close the public hearing for application A-24-38.
Our next application is A24-39 for Charlie C. Garza. Mr. Garza is seeking a variance from a requirement that accessory structures shall not be located in the front yard or front setback unless located 100 feet from the front property line to enable the construction of a carport. The property is located on the north side of West Lebanon Road, approximately 130 feet east of Tisher Drive. being lot number 2 in the Greenview subdivision east of Camden. Levy Court District is the second. The zoning district is RS1. Mr. Garza, if you please state your state your name and address and allow our attorney to swear you in, and I'll come get those for you.
Charlie C. Garza, 267 West Lebanon Road, Dover, Delaware.
Mr. Garza, over here, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And I'm sorry, I'll apologize. If we could just go through the pictures real quick. So Mr. Garza is proposing a 14 by 20 carport, 25 feet from the front property line. The required front setback for the principal structure would be 40, but like the previous application, he must be behind the front of the home or 100 feet from the front property line. This is looking right on at the front of the home, down Route 10, back towards the like Camden area, where you see this gray car here. This is the approximate location of the proposed carport, looking at the neighbor's dwelling, and on the other side, here is the aerial, and the farther above. So Mr. Garza, if you want to go ahead.
Yes, the last time I was here, I had difficulty seeing my paper because there's no light in here. Can you turn this on?
We don't have a light.
Okay, all right.
And if you could just pull that mic a little bit closer.
All right. I submitted this request in June of this year, and I was going to appeal the decision that was made at that time, and I couldn't find an attorney. And when I notified council of the problem I was having, they said, why don't you just resubmit? So the comments I'm making now are in reference to my second submission for the request for variance. Now, when I started constructing my home in 1980, I immediately noticed that I was going to have a serious safety issue exiting my property onto Lebanon Road by having to back out over 100 feet to oncoming traffic that is traveling at over 50 miles an hour. I told the contractor to place a concrete pad attached to my driveway approximately 20 feet from my garage door so that I could back out of my garage, make a quick right turn into the pad, and leave my driveway nose first onto Lebanon Road. That would make it much safer. I have been using this pad for this purpose for the past 44 years. I have had 6 back surgeries since 1968, and I have fused vertebrae, so it is impossible for me to twist my body too far to see what is behind me when I am backing out of driveways. So to me, driving out nose first is a safety issue. My wife passed away in May of this year, and our daughter lives with me. She uses this pad to park her car, and I have 1-car garage. Recently, I decided to enclose the pad with a simple carport, and I have provided you with a drawing of it, a photo of the one that I have selected, to protect her car from inclement weather while still giving us the ability to use it to ensure we leave the property nose first. That was when I applied for the first variance. That request was denied by 2 members of the council when they stated that I had other options. The request was denied because 2 members of the council stated I had other options that I could take, like placing the carport on the west side of my house, or to place it on the back of the garage, or to place it on the east side of the house. The placement of the carport in the locations that they suggested to me is impossible. On the west side of the house, I have 2 45-year-old Norway maples. I have hedges the full width of the house. I have high voltage cables, television cables, internet cables, telephone lines, all are underground. On the east side of the house, I have another 44-year-old maple, and I have the exit garage door. I also have pavers on that door so that I can make access to my garbage cans. Behind the garage, I have a 185-gallon fuel oil tank that is above ground to furnish my furnace. That was one reason it was denied. The other reason it was denied was at the distance of the current cement pad, which incidentally, those figures are incorrect. The location of the, the location of, did not meet DelDOT requirements. The DelDOT comment sheet that I have presented to you states that the building should be a minimum of 55 feet from the inside edge of Lebanon Road. And I called DelDOT and I spoke to the individual who made that comment to have him explain to me exactly what he meant so I could go back and measure accurately what was required. The current distance from my pad to the inside edge of Lebanon Road is 54 feet, 3 inches. I am 3 inches short of the requirement. To comply with this requirement, I would tell the contractor to pour 5 feet of concrete on the north side of my concrete pad and just move the recommended location of the carport to meet the DelDOT requirements. And that would be 55 feet.
Mr. Garza,
Yes.
over here. So I would ask you if you could tell the board members a little bit more about why you need the structure as opposed to
Yes, I'll be glad to.
what you focused on, because that's really what this case is about. Why is it so necessary for you to put a structure in that location? Because you've indicated to us that you use that to back into, so you don't have to back out onto Route 10.
I'll explain that.
Well, that's important. So
Okay.
if you would,
To me, being able to exit my garage the way I have been doing it since I had the house built, since I realized that I had a problem. It was too late because I had the contract signed and they were building the house. So to resolve that problem that affects me personally is being able to get out the way I just explained. If I follow the recommendation of the council, I would have to build another driveway to accommodate the carport.
well, but why do you need a carport, though? That's the question that the board is considering. You've got a pad there that you can use, so you can
I
safely.
need a carport because I have 3 cars and I only have a 1-car garage. And I want to have security and safety for the 2 other autos that are out there in the open right now. In 1980, people didn't have too many cars, and to me at that time that was not an issue. But now, years later, with all that traffic, we have buses, we have trucks, we have cars, motorcycles, you name it. Route 10, Lebanon Road is Route 10. And there is a lot of heavy traffic. And if I were to move that carport somewhere else and build another driveway to accommodate it, I would have to demolish this one. And by demolishing that, it would eliminate that safety that I have and that I've had for the past 44 years.
So you're not being told that you need to eliminate the area that
Oh,
you...
I'm not, no. I wasn't told that I had to eliminate it, but where else would I put the driveway if I built a carport on the side?
You're not being required to move your driveway. The question is, why is it so important to build? What is your exceptional practical difficulty that requires you to build a structure in a place where the code doesn't permit it? That's the question.
All right, let me word it a different way. If I cover my carport, if you allow me to build it where I stated, within the requirements of DelDOT, that would help me improve the value of my property. It would not bother neither of my neighbors. The neighbor on my right doesn't have anything in that area. He just has an empty lot. The neighbor on the other side, traffic is traveling on Route 10 from east to west. He is on my east side. It doesn't affect his vision. I would be denied the right to improve the value of my property, and I would be denied to provide my daughter and me the safety that we now have by not being able to get out the way we've been getting out for the that. In other words, I am given a choice. Give up your safety if you want to build your carport, but only if you put it somewhere else where it's going to cost me. It'll be cost prohibitive. Do you know how much I would have to pay to remove those trees, to pour all that concrete, which would be required if I moved it somewhere else? So the danger to me is not allowing me to improve the value of my property, not to be able to improve the curb appeal and the satisfaction of making sure that I am 89 years old. I'm going to be 90 in 2 months. Pretty soon I'm going to give that property to my daughter and to my grandson. And I would like to leave them with an area that would be safe, that would improve the value of the house, and it is hurting no one. I am a person who has spent 46 years in the Air Force. I spent 31 years on active duty. I liked it so much, and I stayed for 15 more years working civil service. Right now, I am 100% disabled, and I have difficulty walking and turning around. And I think that what I have given to this country, something should be given back to me to show what I have sacrificed. I've never had parents, uncles, grandfathers, weddings, funerals, nothing for 46 years because I chose to serve my country and live elsewhere. I am even an atomic veteran. You know what that is? I was used as a human test subject to test the effect of nuclear radiation on the human body. And to those people that have cancer or who have had cancer, thanks to me and my fellow airmen who were there, contributed to nuclear medicine. I hope that I have at least convinced the people that what I'm asking for is not asking too much.
Mr. Garza, thank you for service. At this time, any questions from the board?
Yes, I have one. Mr. Garza, did you ever put together an estimate or
Excuse me.
did you ever acquire an estimate on removing the shrubs that you discussed?
I'm sorry, but I have difficulty hearing too.
Did you ever acquire an estimate to remove the shrubs that are on either the east side or the west side of your house to move the carport?
No, but I'll tell you this. I planted 21 white pines on my backyard, and I had to pay almost $4,000 to have those 21 trees removed, and I have the receipt at home because my wife was getting concerned because they were 30 or 40 feet high. So removing trees is terribly expensive. And here again, the design of the carport that I selected is very conservative. I even told him I didn't want a pitched roof. I wanted a flat roof, and you see the photos. It is a very attractive design, and it would not draw attention, as it was inferred by the last time I was here. They were saying that it was drawing too much attention from my house. I would be willing, like I mentioned it then, I would be willing to landscape it to where it wouldn't even look like a carport. It would look more like a little gazebo or something.
Any other questions?
I have one. In an email that you, Jamie, that you had contacted DelDOT, what was the purpose of that clarification? Since it's a setback that the county has set, what did you folks reach out to DelDOT for?
Sure. So, as Mr. Garza stated last time he applied, DelDOT submitted that comment letter that you saw in his packet that stated that the carport needed to be a minimum of 55 feet from the inside edge of Lebanon Road. We had interpreted that inside edge as being essentially the inside edge closest to his house, or the edge of the road closest to his house. So, when Mr. Garza came back to apply, he had stated that he had talked to the DelDOT gentleman, and he told us that the inside edge was not the edge that we had used. It is actually the edge of the median in the road. That is what they were referring to as the inside edge.
So measuring from that, how short is he for DelDOT requirements?
Based on the numbers he gave us, he says he's a bit short. Based on when we had measured it over the aerials, it looked like he would meet that well in advance. In fact, the roadway itself, I think, is further than that.
If DelDOT's saying that's from the median, he's definitely over.
Yeah, because the road itself is almost, I think,
So
it's 2 lanes of traffic, so it's at
he
least.
probably measured from the
30.
shoulder.
He should meet the DelDOT 55.
Can I make a
Recognizing-
comment? Can I make a
Recognizing that
comment?
that's not the relief that he needs. It's from the county code, not from DelDOT specs.
Correct.
Can I make a comment on the same subject? In the mid-1990s, DelDOT came and widened Lebanon Road. They took my mailbox and moved it almost 15 feet closer to my house. They took my driveway, chopped off the end of it, and moved it back about 15 feet. And you can see it if you go and inspect it, because the color of the concrete on my driveway and the new driveway that they added on after they chopped off. So the distance in 1980 of my house to Lebanon Road was different than what it is now.
Based on the aerials, it's 82 feet. So
Any other questions? So just a clarification. So really the carport is for right here. Add value right here. Add value to the property. Just clarification. Add value to the property and safety factor, as well as keep the vehicle out from like inclement weather. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
And one more last point. There are two houses across the street from me in Royal Grant that requested, one, variance to install a 12-foot fence 12 feet from this curb, the other one to move a shed I think it's 15 feet from the curb. So you people have made exceptions, and I don't think there was any safety or value thing considered there. They just wanted a place to put their junk, and the other one they wanted a fence so that people couldn't see in their yard. And I am asking to add value to my house and to keep my safety that I think I have earned.
Any other questions? 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 Any Yep, go ahead.
Mr. Garza, thank you for your service. Have you considered installing any lighting along your driveway, as this is an issue of concern for you?
I was going to request solar panels on the carport if it was approved to provide me for night lighting. Because here again, that's an issue that I see that's not fair. I am a member of Greenview Development. My lot is not out on the outskirts. It's right in the middle of the development. Everyone in my development received street lighting when it was approved in the 1990s. The neighbor on my left has lighting provided by DelDOT, and he has a light pole provided by Greenview Development. The neighbor on my right has a street light on the front corner of his lot, and he has a street light on the back corner of his lot. I have nothing except my light on my front porch. And when I asked an office, first floor, downstairs, if I could get lighting installed, and they told me, oh, the city of Dover can provide it, call them. I called them and they said, yeah, we'll provide it, but you'll have to pay for it.
But separate from the consideration of the carport, have you considered putting lighting in? Regardless of whether a carport got
I am
approved.
considering now, yes, because there's much more traffic. They have put sidewalks across the street. There's much more traffic, people traffic. Things are different from the 1980s, and I am thinking of paying to have light input out there.
Thank you, Mr. Garza.
Mr. Garza, I think the point of the question is, if you add lighting out there, might your property be more safe if you add some lighting? And
Yes.
Aren't you proposing a carport in part because you want your property, your vehicles, to be safe? And what is the risk that you're confronted with now in terms of safety? I mean, do you have a history of your property being broken into, or do you have cars stolen?
No, there is just more foot traffic now.
So, but it's not the case that you don't want people walking by to look at your car, right? You don't want people walking by to vandalize your car or something. I mean,
Well, I don't want that to happen.
Of course.
There's a reason everybody else in my neighborhood has lighting and I don't.
Good. Any other questions? Good, thank you.
Is there anyone else present who would like to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone else present that would like to speak in opposition of this application? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing for A2439. Our next application is A2440. Is there anyone present? If you want to stay seated, we'll call you up to the podium. This application, the Millers are seeking a variance from the requirement that the primary unit shall remain owner occupied unless the property is 5 acres or more to apply for a short-term rental. The property is located on the east side of Hartley Road, approximately 0.33 miles north of Halltown Road, east of Hartley. Levy Court District is a second, and the zoning district is AR. Here you can see the placement of the house on the property. Property is about 1.5 acres. This is looking at the house, up the road, down the road, looking again towards the property from the roadway, up the driveway towards the left side of the property, the aerial, and further out. Sir, if you'd like to come up, please state your name and address and allow our attorney to swear you in.
Good evening. Cameron Miller is my name. and the address 3047 Hartley Road, Hartley, Delaware, 19953.
Mr. Miller, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. So funny enough, my cousin was the first one you heard from tonight. So if we can stack up points for familial distress, I would appreciate it as well. But I won't go there. So basically, my goal for this is to preserve any kind of property value that we would have in the property. Initially, my wife and I, and we have 3 kids as well, we built the house, renovated the house, at a couple years ago, I think it was 2021, and did a lot of work to it. So we appreciated the effort that we put into it, and we had some interest in the Airbnb style renting compared to long-term rental. Her parents do Airbnb up in Pennsylvania, and they've also done long-term rental as well, and there are some horror stories on that side of things. So we had decided to try to go the Airbnb route, because short-term rental, we tend to have less people in it, as in chunks of time, and then at that same time, then we can take that time when there aren't people in it for projects, maintenance, any kind of, I would say devaluation, if it occurs. And if you're familiar with Airbnb, they also do really well with writing reviews for anybody that stays. So there's seems like a really high standard. So that's kind of the reason why we decided to go with Airbnb as the higher standard, hold the value of the property. And so this all kind of came about when my grandmother, she's got Parkinson's and went to move in with my aunt. And so the house was sitting empty her house was sitting empty for about a year. So my parents and my aunts approached us and wanted us to move into it and assume the bills of that property due to the fact that she's unable to care for herself, so she was living with my aunt. So we were the only ones in the position to do so, as far as I'm aware. And so that came with all the bills. We're talking taxes, electric bills, heating, all the things. So to offset that cost, we decided to Airbnb it, and I tried to do the due diligence and look through the Kent County regulations, and unfortunately, I guess I was looking in the wrong spot. I couldn't find those, so that was my mistake. But then we are now, reviewing the variance application. So that was ideally my goal in doing that, and comparing the short-term rental to the long-term rental, just the cost to income ratio is probably about half from what we're looking at, and that would cover a significant amount more of the bills that we have incurred in my grandmother's home. So that's what I'm looking at with that. So and according to the neighbors, as you can see, I think it's the west is mostly woods, right up in here. Then we have the property that was just sold here, and I believe, according to the neighbor, that was sold to the SPCA, and they're planning on putting in dog kennels. I don't know how true that is, if you guys have heard anything from that. This house here has remained unoccupied from the 2 to 3 years we've owned the property, and then even talking with the neighbors previously, it has remained empty for a number of years previous as well. So, and then also we have the Cannon Dover scrap metal business here, and then Royal Farms is just up the road from that. So I believe there are a fair amount of businesses and a lot of property room. So I don't think it would be a stretch to say that it would not be an inconvenience for our neighbors. The neighbors directly to the north here, we are very well acquainted with them. He is a security guard between the courthouse and the prison up in Smyrna. So we've had conversations and had supper a few times. And I would just like to read his text message. He said that he would not have even known anything had happened had we not told him that there was an Airbnb there and the car changing. that was the only thing that they had noticed. So no disturbances, and I think that's part of the Airbnb protocol, is that you have a lot of high value people that you can kind of regulate and be a little bit more involved versus long-term rental, along with the cost beneficiary as well. But I would take your questions.
Thank you. Any questions?
Well, in regards to the code, I think it requires for you to have 5 acres, and you're asking for a pretty significant variance. If I'm right, it's like 3.497
Yep.
acres, because you have 1.5.
1.5.
I understand the nature of what you're trying to do. Do you have any idea how long this short-term rental situation would occur? Would this be just ongoing, or is it just for a certain period of time, or what?
So that's hard to judge based on my grandmother's position. Parkinson's is kind of a slow progressing thing, so it's day to day. It's not really, being able to put a timeline on it. But then eventually, with that being said, between inflation, between all the other things that are currently going on, and the tax hikes, recent tax increase, things like that, I think that's mainly the best way to get the value out of the asset that we do have. Because the asset that's there, if, say for long-term rentals, if you have somebody in there for a year, they're going to do a lot more damage in a year than somebody that's in there for a weekend. And they're also going to be a lot quicker to be a disturbance to neighbors and things like that. So the way I see it is, if I don't have 5 acres, I have to live in it, but then you don't get the value out of the home. But then if we have 5 acres, I think the area buffer around the property is sufficient enough, in my opinion, that you wouldn't have that overreach, I guess, from that property.
I have a question.
Sure.
For staff, actually. So based on the code in Kent County, no one can operate an Airbnb unless it's on 5 acres or more? Is that the way the code is written?
Unless they also reside on the property. So for example, if they had an accessory dwelling unit, they could rent that out. Or if they wanted to rent rooms in their house, they could rent that out as long as they live on the property. But otherwise, yes, if they do not reside on the property and it is not 5 acres, then they are not permitted to have a short-term rental.
So is that something that's actively being policed? And the reason I'm asking is, if one was to search for an Airbnb right now in Kent County, multiple properties are going to pop up. So my question is how did Mr. Miller get here?
Sure, yes. So we are complaint driven, and there was a complaint filed for this property that there was an Airbnb and that the owners were not living there.
Okay. Was that a neighboring property?
I believe it was an anonymous complaint.
So if I could speak to that, the neighbors that I've talked to, they've not had any issues with it. Nobody's ever come to me. Again, most people wouldn't even know it's an Airbnb unless you go on the listing and see that it's an Airbnb. I can't speak to the anonymity between the complaint, so yeah. So it did have me curious, though, because we did run it for a couple months, and again, I was unclear of the actual process of things because I couldn't find anything. So again, that was my mistake. But yeah, then I received the letter and I said, oh, we need to do some things. So here we are. And yes, if you look on the Airbnb site, there are quite a wide variety of Airbnbs in the Dover area, and there doesn't seem to be very many out towards the Maryland line, whether that be Hartley, Marydale. So there is what I would say a market for it, and I don't want to make it all about the money, but it is a good option if you're trying to increase the value of the property and to keep it from devaluing, whether you have long-term rentals and things like that.
I do have one more question.
Sure.
During the weeks that you're not rented or the days that you aren't rented, do you go and stay? Does anybody go there and stay for a little while or?
So we don't stay like overnight, but we would. So my wife cleans. She has had a cleaning business for a few years. So she takes care of that side of the property. I take care of the maintenance, whether that be landscaping, all those things. And we also have, just about 360 camera view. So that way we can keep an eye on the property, smart locks. If something were to happen, we can keep a pretty tight eye on things. That was kind of the goal. I think with long-term, you don't have that hands-on and are at a lot higher risk of devaluing certain aspects of the property that we put a lot of time and effort into.
Thank you.
So at the present time, you don't have a history on rentals at this point?
As in what style of rental?
I mean, with the Airbnb, or how long have you been doing this?
So I believe we started the end of June, and up until now, it's been pretty well booked. And we had somebody over the winter request a long-term Airbnb as well. So then you have that aspect too. So that way, if you have the downtime of, say, wintertime, that people are maybe a little less likely to travel, then you do have that option as well, which also covers your long-term benefit. But then you have the really heavy months that you can actually incur a lot of value to the property and make adjustments as needed.
So just to follow up, let's say, for example, we didn't approve this variance. How does this affect you economically?
So economically, I really don't see the cost to benefit ratio of long-term rental, and we may have to sell the property, unfortunately. That's kind of where we're looking at now. And I'd obviously crunch the numbers and try to, work something out, because it is an asset, and with inflation going nuts, cash, if we sell the house, cash is not going to be what it's going to be in the house. So that's what I'm looking at.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I had one question for the staff. So a lease of over 30 days would not be an issue, and it's commercial use, and that would not be an issue in this location?
Correct.
So that's a residential use in a residential area, and it's a residential structure. So, I mean, you've heard me advise on a number of occasions that a variance can be justified for a business that is trying to, remain competitive. But this is not a business. It's a residential use, and that's something you're going to have to struggle with, I think, as you.
So if I may speak to that, livelihood versus business. So it's not always just money, it's our livelihood. What assets we do have, we want to make it work for us. And I think the 5 acres or live there, it kind of restricts the abilities of the property. If you can see, I think the builders did a really good job with what they've built. And I just want to, just get the value out of that.
I have one more question, if I could.
Sure. You
You invested quite a bit of money into this place with the idea of it being an Airbnb?
So not necessarily an Airbnb. We did initially build it as an asset, whether that be long-term rental. It kind of depends on the situation. Ideally, we were going to live in it for 15 years, pay it off, and then use it as a rental at that point, because then there is no monetary restriction. It's all just income at that point. So again, the situation is changed, and there's a familial responsibility that I would consider a responsibility, and that's where the variance comes in, and the idea for Airbnb.
Thank you.
So, without this family crisis, is it fair to say you wouldn't have gone in this direction?
No, that is fair to say.
Thank you.
Any other questions? See none. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Is there anyone else present that would like to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone online that would like to speak in favor of this application?
If there's anyone joining us online that would like to speak in favor of this application, please indicate by raising your electronic hand at this time. I see no hands raised online.
Is there anyone else present that would like to speak in opposition of this application?
Similarly, if you're online and would like to speak in opposition to this application, please indicate by raising your electronic hand. Still no hands raised online.
Seeing no one, we will close the hearing for application A24-40. Our next application is A24-41. Is there someone present? Please stay seated and we'll call you up soon. The Beachies are seeking a variance from the required 200-foot side and rear setbacks to apply for an agricultural, manufacturing, and waste service. The property is located on the north side of West Denny's Road, approximately 700 feet east of Dinah Corner Road, west of Dover. Levy Court District is a second, zoning district is AR. Here you can see in orange the proposed building. It is required to be a minimum of 200 feet from the side and rear property lines, and then it is also required to be 500 feet from a dwelling not located on the property. As you can see indicated with the measurements there, it will meet the required 200-foot setback on 3 of the sides, and from the front. It is just not going to meet it at the top section there. And then they also will meet the 500 feet from the dwelling on the neighboring property. This is the staff recommendation proposal showing that there is room to fit the building on the property in a compliant location. This is looking up the road, other side, up towards the property from the road. This is kind of to the side of the house looking back to the rear of the property, further in, looking up towards the road, the aerial, and further out. Sir, if you'd like to come up, please state your name and your address and allow our attorney to swear you in.
Johnny Beachy, 1191 West Denny's Road, Dover, Delaware 19904.
Mr. Miller, would you pull that mic a little closer? Thank you. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I affirm. So what we're looking to do, as you could see on the pictures there, was have a feed mill so we can have a business there at home. And where we would like to have it is closer to the road than where the staff noted on the back. The location in the back would be extremely close to the house and would also block the view for wildlife in the back fields. My brother owns the fields on the east side where the 110-foot setback is, and there's only just fields there. There's the east side property line is in a low spot where no one would build a house anyway. Even in the future, there would be no danger of someone trying to build a house within the 200 feet setback if the building were in the front. And also the 200 feet for the proposed site in the back was not taken into consideration the one property point. And it's also close to the woods and wetland area in the back there. So it would create a a much harder way of access to the back versus having it closer to the road.
Any questions?
Yes. So where the 200-foot minimum distance is from the property there, or from the structure, what's going on there? Did you say that was unbuildable land or low land that would probably not be buildable at that 200-foot level? Where
Are you talking about in the back?
On the diagram where it says 200-foot minimum, is there anything going on? Yes, there.
No, that's just our, our driveways on that side. We have, our pasture field is there for the horses. And we would keep it that distance from the west line, which would also keep it 500 feet from the neighbor's house.
So if I understand the diagram correctly, your nearest neighbor is 500 feet.
Our nearest neighbor is next door, but we could keep the building 500 feet from their house, which is the minimum setback.
I know it's a feed mill, correct?
Yes.
What type of noise are we talking about for that?
The noise would be a diesel engine to run the equipment.
Just one or multiple?
There would be only one.
Thank you.
Can you explain why the building's oriented that way? I feel like we could pick up, can you go back to the other, how it's skewed on an angle there?
Because of the shed that is there. If we would go 200 feet from the west side and not have it on an angle, it would run into the existing shed.
I believe this is the shed that he is referring to. It's hard to see on that plot plan there, but there is an existing shed that's here. Is that correct, Mr. Beachy?
Yes.
Thank you.
So also, it's like if staff recommended we're placing that building back there, it looks like you have you have the septic back there, the well back there. How often will you be accessing this building? Just
It would be used on a daily basis, 5
Okay.
days a week.
Can you show the aerial? Yeah, thank you. It's also looks like there's a heavy tree line there too, across the back.
Sir, can you take your finger on that screen and just put an arrow where you propose to put that building based on that aerial, please?
That's slightly off. It should be further east. It would be, yeah, that's closer.
Mr. Beachy, you mentioned earlier that there was a parcel that you thought was low-lying land that was not buildable. Where is that in reference to this diagram?
It's the woods in the back.
But that's on the neighboring property, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think that was the question. Originally was, I think you were making the case that it wouldn't be harmful if your structure was located nearer than 200 feet to the neighboring property because the neighboring property was low and was not subject to being developed with a dwelling.
That's on the east side.
Could you point to the area that's low?
This property line.
Right. So that's what I meant. That's exactly what I thought. So the area just to the right of that is an area that's low and not likely to be developed with a dwelling.
Yes.
So without physically seeing it, theoretically, it could be filled in to build on?
If you have enough dirt.
Thank you.
I have a question for the staff. So your recommendation of the building's relocation are the dimensions of that recommendation, that building, the same size as that's proposed?
The staff exhibit that we produced does have the same size building as proposed. I think in the staff report, we wrote that it could also be adjusted potentially size-wise, but the exhibit does show it the same size.
Mr. Beachy, other than the blocking some of the view of the land behind there, what is the concern about not following the staff's recommendation?
It would be much closer to the house. And I also noticed that the staff did not consider the other point of the neighbor's property when they took the 200 feet into consideration. And also the angle of the west back property line.
Yeah, I mean, looking at this area, I think just access to the building. I mean, it looks like there's a...
Is that a tax ditch or a low area
right
there that runs through the middle?
It's not a tax ditch. It's actually just the very beginning of a drainage ditch. My dad has in the past considered putting in a swale so that all of it could be used as farmland, but at this point there's maybe a 10-foot wide section, probably less than 10-foot wide section that was not planted in corn this year.
So is the proposed location of the structure inside that swale?
No, it's the swale, the ditch is, like I said, 10 feet wide at the most. So it's 110 feet or more from that ditch.
I have a question for staff. In terms of the procedure where we are now, if we gave him the approval he needs, would there be additional requirements? I see something down here about a conditional use and site plan.
So this type of use does require a conditional use with the site plan, so he will also have to go through that process if you were to grant the variance, and then there could be other conditions stipulated by levy court through that process.
Thank you.
Any other questions? See none. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else present that would like to speak in favor of this application?
If there's anyone joining us online that would like to speak in favor of application A 2441, please indicate by raising your electronic hand. See no hands raised online.
Thank you. Is there anyone else present that would like to speak in opposition of this application?
For our guest online, if you'd like to speak in opposition to this application, please indicate by raising your electronic hand. Still no hands raised online.
Thank you. With seeing no one, we will close the public hearing for application A 24-41.
Next, we have application A-24-42 for Mr. and Mrs. Jackson. The present zoning district is AC. Proposed variance is a variance from the required 25-foot rear setback to construct an addition. Present use is residential. Proposed use is same with an addition. It's in the Levy Court District First for Ms. Maston. Located on the north side of Missouri Court, approximately 224 feet east of Eastridge Drive, being lot 26 in the Village of Eastridge subdivision, south of Smyrna. Here you will see the applicant is seeking to propose a 10 by 20 screened-in porch over an existing deck that would be 10 feet and 6 inches from the rear property line. The required setback for this property and this zoning is 25 feet, but this subdivision has been granted under a PUD that has a 15-foot rear setback. When they ask for a variance, they do have to ask for a variance from the required 25 and not the PUD setback of 15. This is looking at the front of the home, towards the cul-de-sac, back towards the front of the development. This is looking from the side at the existing deck that's there, towards the rear property line. From the rear property line towards the existing deck that they are wishing to cover, the neighboring properties, and in the other direction towards the front of the development. This is looking directly along the side of the existing deck and the area. If one of you folks would like to come forward and state your name and address and allow our attorney to swear you in.
My name is Rodney Jackson. I live at 47 Missouri Court.
Mr. Jackson, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do. Good evening, everyone. We are the Jacksons from 47 Missouri Court. My wife, Linda, and I'm Rodney. I'm a retired NYPD lieutenant. I did 20 years, 6 months, 3 weeks, 4 days, 6 hours, and 37 minutes. We moved to Smyrna on December 17th, 2017. Within a few months, we had a rear deck built so we could enjoy the open air and the sights and sounds of the wooded area. Before long, I started feeling sluggish. I began to gain weight, and my diabetes indicators were alarming. My primary care physician referred me to a urologist, then an oncologist, and together with the VA physician, they determined that I was suffering from a whole host of health issues that included kidney disease, hypertension, and tinnitus. They were able to trace my health issues back to the 18 months that I spent in Southeast Asia. I was an Air Force reconnaissance photographer. They concluded that my health issues were the result of sustained exposure to a highly toxic chemical known as Agent Orange. Among other treatments, my team suggested that fresh air, exercise, and good diet would help to improve some of the health issues and enable me to maintain a good quality of life. So our request to screen in our existing deck isn't using the same materials that were used for the deck. In addition to the health issues that I've already referred to, in January, I was diagnosed with prostate cancer, for which I am currently undergoing hormone treatment and will soon begin radiation treatment. My medical team also concerned about my immune system could be further compromised by overexposure to heat, sunlight, and other insects. At this point, a screen-in deck is not merely a cosmetic want, but a genuine health need. Again, I would like to thank the committee for listening to my concerns, and I would like to thank my neighbors, these folks here. They came here on their own. I've been blessed with a good neighborhood and a good group of people surrounding me. These are folks on either side of my house or in the front of my house. So they were concerned that I should get here today and tell you how I feel about them and also about the conditions that I'm going through. And now, I'd like to say that the other person that I've been with for 50 years, a good partner and a good friend, is my wife, Linda, who has a few words to say.
Yeah, we'll hold off. So the board will ask you questions first, and then we'll bring your wife up. Any questions for Mr. Rodney?
Can we see the aerial? I just want to see what's behind this house, if we could.
Behind that house there is the open space for the development.
Open space.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Well, I'll ask a question then. Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Part of your challenge is to establish why you want to make a screen porch of your existing deck. You've indicated that essentially it's safer for you to be inside the house than outside the house. So tell us why you want to be on the deck instead of inside the house.
Well, being outside provides me with the fresh air that I need. And also, being inside, I can't stay inside too long with air conditioning because it dries me out. So I have to go outside to get the fresh air. And when we're outside, my wife and I are able to sit down, talk about different issues, listen to music, and drink a glass of wine.
Do you foresee any impact on your neighboring properties? I obviously see that they're here in full support, but can you just touch base on that? Building this addition, take away any of their views at all or anything like that?
No, I see, there's no view other than the fact that they're beside us and we're talking about looking towards the wooded area. So it wouldn't take anything away from their eyesight or their eye line or their locations where they want to look at something other than the houses beside us.
Mr. Jackson, on both sides of you, if you look on both sides, what's going on in terms of both neighbors? Is it similar composition going on based on the pictures I've seen? I'm just asking.
Well, on our left, right here, a little further up here, yeah. Ed is also, it's Ed and Penny They are great neighbors, and they are also going through health issues too, especially Ed. And they have a screen-in porch. Now, on the other side, with Jane is a great neighbor. She also has a screen-in porch, and it gave a good place for her husband, Paul, who passed away recently. And being out there gave him peace of mind where he can focus and enjoy the outdoors, and see nature for what it is.
Thank you so much for the sacrifices you've made for us.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
All right, thank you. Oh, by the way, our HOA has already approved the building for us, the plans to be built there, and we have copies if you want to look at a copy of what they said was okay. They approved it. Thank you.
If you want to give them a copy, planning staff will take a copy.
Mrs. Jackson, would you like to express your support for the application?
I'll always support my husband.
So for the record, I have to ask you your
Sure.
Name and address, please.
Yes, my name is Linda Susan Jackson. My address is 47 Azori Court, Smyrna, 19977.
And do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes. Okay, my husband has eloquently described the nature of our request for a variance, not merely as cosmetic, but as a necessity, given his current health challenges. And I'm so glad to be here to clarify the need for our variance. Our request is to screen in the existing porch, not to build out beyond the existing porch. The present porch deck is 10 feet out and 20 feet long. We're not proposing to build beyond that 10-foot where the existing deck is. So our proposal will not alter the width or the depth of the existing porch. I think there was some misunderstanding that we were going beyond the existing deck. That is not true. So my husband's already told you that we received the approval from the HOA, their architectural review committee, from the village of Eastridge. That's all I just really wanted to clarify, that we're not building beyond the deck, it is just building on top of the deck. We're going up, not out. Thank you. Any questions?
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
We saw images of neighboring properties that had screened-in porches like you'd like to build, is that right?
Correct.
Are any of those neighboring properties actually, do they have their decks enclosed? Like fully enclosed?
No, it's just a deck, and then they just have the screen.
So it's not your intention that you would ever enclose that area, right?
No.
Because that
just
would
the
defeat
screen.
the whole purpose of the screened-in deck and taking in the outside air.
Correct, correct. And I was very concerned recently with the reports of Dr. Fauci, who got bit by a mosquito and almost died. I don't want my husband sitting out on the deck, risking that kind of exposure.
Very good. Any other questions?
Yes, I have a question for staff. Is the request up to the limit of the 25-foot rear setback? So are they asking us for a variance of 14.5?
This is kind of difficult. So because this subdivision was approved under a PUD, they were granted a 15-foot rear setback per the PUD. So it has, if you will, special setbacks for just this development. This is zoning, if it was not in a PUD, would have a 25-foot rear setback. So they are technically asking from the 25 because that's what's in code. but the subdivision itself had been granted 15 feet. So they are asking for 4.5 feet from the PUD setback, but
Okay.
yes, they're asking from the 25 from the code.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Good. Thank you, Ms. Jackson.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor of this application? Okay, you may come forward, just state your name and address and allow our attorneys to swear you in. And I do just want to remind you, because there are several folks out there, if you guys would like to appoint one person to speak on behalf of all of you, you're welcome to do that. You are each also welcome to speak individually.
My name is Howard Steinmeier, 63 Missouri Court.
Mr. Steinmeier, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes. I can understand why they want to screen it in. The insects in the back are terrible. I live just 2 houses over from them. It's really bad. Yeah, they really need that. Yeah, it's because that land in behind us is protected land. It's got a stream running through there, and the bugs are really bad. I don't have a deck or anything. I don't even go out there. So, yeah, I would appreciate if you do let them do this. Thank you.
Can you point to your house? On the monitor there, just push. Right there, okay.
Very good. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor? Ma'am, if you want to come forward, state your name and address and allow our attorney to swear you in. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Penelope Tatum, and my address is 39 Missouri Court. I am...
Ms. Tatum, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do. My husband and I are neighbors to the left of the Jacksons, and our home would be right here. We were before you about 7 months ago for the same variance. My husband spoke. He's a retired command sergeant major. We were both and still are undergoing treatment. We got our deck, you approved our deck, and we are graciously appreciative for that. It's helped us tremendously as far as going outside, being able to enjoy the outdoors, not having to deal with the rays of the sunlight due to the medicine that we're currently taking. We don't have to deal with the insects. Since our screened-in porch has been there, it's just been heaven. And we go out there, we can drink our coffee and just, not have to worry. We don't want to stay closed up in the house all the time because we don't want to be exposed to too much sun, or we don't want to be exposed to, a lot of insects with bites and things like that. But it's made a big difference in our lives, and we were able to enjoy our deck. So I just wanted to come and support the Jacksons. They're our next door neighbors. They're fantastic neighbors. And I would like to see them happy too if they're going through the same things that we've gone through. Thank you.
Ms. Tatum, have any of your neighbors complained about your use of your deck?
Not at all. Not at all.
Do you play music on your deck?
Well, we don't play music. We have the earbuds, so you can't hear it out loud, but yes.
I just was curious if you knew what type of music your neighbors liked and whether you approved. But
well, whatever they want to listen to is fine. They're probably jazz enthusiasts, I think. So we're on the same page.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor? Please state your name and address and allow our attorney to swear you in.
My name is Mike Sanders. I live at 60 Missouri Court.
Mr. Sanders, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes. I'll be brief. I just want to reinforce this is my house here, and speaking for the Doug and Sue, that's their house there. I just want to reinforce that insects are a problem. You're not sitting out there. I don't care if you have a mosquito authority or whatever. You're not out there very long. We're on the side, we got the retention pond. It's bad, the whole area. It's great to be there, you know, with the nature, but the insects are brutal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor of this application? Thank you. Again, please state your name and address and allow our attorney to swear you in.
Joseph Lewis, 70 Azuri Court.
Sir, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I will. Good evening. I'll be brief. I'm speaking in favor of the Jacksons. I live at a 70 Azuri Court, and I would like to confirm the insect population. Just this recently, during the summer, I was bitten so bad I had to seek medical attention. And I also have a deck, and so I will be requesting a variance at some time in the very near future.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor of this application?
If there's anyone joining us online that would like to speak in favor of this application, please indicate by raising your electronic hand. No hands raised online.
Thank you. Is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition of this application?
If there's anyone joining us online that would like to speak in opposition to this application, please indicate by raising your electronic hand. Still no hands raised online.
Thank you. Seeing no one, we will close the public hearing for application A-24-42.
Thank you. Let's take a 5-minute recess, and we'll come back and do the business meeting.
I need a break from the children. Yes. I'm a jazz person. We go on a jazz cruise.
And you want to come look at our
Basement. That's my next project I'm working on.
Are you hanging around? We're children of the 60s. We know how to protest. Oh, you're welcome.
It took 28 days. Yeah. Straight. No weekends. Oh, okay. 5 business days. That's the other thing, chemo will do that.
Yep, it will.
When you started the beginning, then I, you watch how you made your steps.
That's all right. That's why we're here.
It's the shots.
All right, let's start the business meeting. Can you call roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Carter?
Here.
Mr. Jenkins?
Here.
Mr. Gallo?
Here.
Mr. Jones?
Here.
Mr. Cusick?
Here.
Thank you. That's 5 still present.
Thank you. Approval of the business meetings from August 15th, 2024.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the August 15th, 2024 Board of Adjustment meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Approval of the notice of decision from the August 15th, 2024 meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the notices of decisions A24-32, 33, 34, and 35 of the August 15th, 2024 Board of Adjustment meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Old business, A24-25, Bernard Limpert.
Okay, so Mr. Limpert had been approved a variance for a 30 by 40 garage at 45 feet from the front property line. He has submitted his his permit, and when he submitted his permit, he asked for a 10 by 40 lean-to be added onto the 30 by 40. With that, With the additional 10-foot lean-to, we just wanted to come back to the board since he originally requested a 30 by 40 and seek your approval for the 10-foot lean-to. If you have any questions, we do have Mr. Limpert here, where I could try to answer any questions that you may have for staff.
Any questions for the board?
Sorry, and if I could just add, they are not requesting a difference in the front setback, just a request to add a 10-foot lean-to.
Yeah. I need to recuse myself from this.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve application A24-25 for the modification based on the reasons given to us for prior approval from the staff and just the fact that it's within the front setback granted for A24-25.
Second.
Motion and second.
Thank you. Mr. Gallo?
I'm voting for aye.
Thank you. Mr. Carter?
Yeah, I'll vote in favor of the motion based on the staff recommendation.
Thank you. Mr. Jenkins?
I vote yes in support of my motion.
Thank you. And Mr. Cusick?
I vote yes per staff recommendation.
Thank you. That is 4 in favor of the application, 1 recused.
Thank you with that. Application A24-25 is approved. Let's do new business. Looks like everyone is here. So we'll start from the beginning.
Okay, so first up, we have the Millers seeking a variance from the requirement that an accessory structure shall not be located in the front yard or front setback unless located 100 feet from the front property line to enable the construction of a dwelling. Again, the existing accessory building is 73 feet from the front property line. The applicants are seeking the proposed home to be 155 feet from the front property line.
Thank you. Any discussion or motion?
Well, I think when you consider some of the testimony that was given to us tonight from the applicant, there are some things that maybe I had questions about before I got here, and he did a good job answering them. For example, just the composition and the layout of the property in terms of where the shed is, that's 72 or 73 feet from the road, or from the property line, I'm sorry.
Any other discussion?
I think it would be a real practical difficulty to remove that building that has a concrete pad and
Yeah, I
it's
agree.
pre-existing.
Existing building and adds value to the property. And I think the safety is a concern too. I mean, 40 feet from the road.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned safety because I know the applicant said that was his primary concern for wanting to build behind the accessory structure for safety reasons.
I have a question though, is if we grant the variance, would it be specific to that building?
Yes.
That's certainly what's intended, not to reestablish the setback, because actually this is more question of where you can locate, what the limitations are for locating an accessory building than it is the proximity to the road.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve application A24-38 based on the fact that the building was legitimate when the original house was built. Circumstances required the removal of the house, plus the cost of removing the building.
I'll second that motion.
You have a motion and a second?
Thank you. Mr. Gallo?
I vote in favor of the motion. I believe a failure to remove the restriction would create an unnecessary hardship and an exceptional practical difficulty. being that the building was pre-existing and is substantial.
Thank you. Mr. Jenkins?
I vote in support of application A24-38, primarily because of the testimony of the applicant when you factor in the different variables that he presented, number one being safety on the new structure versus the distance of the accessory structure and the economic impact of trying to replace that, relocate it, or remove it.
Thank you. Mr. Jones?
I'll vote in support of application A-24-38. Based on the testimony that was given tonight by Mr. Miller, there certainly would be an economic hardship. And the most important thing here that I saw this evening was about the safety. And I'm all about the safety of children. And so I vote in favor based on that.
Thank you. Mr. Carter?
I vote in favor of the motion based on my motion.
Thank you. Mr. Cusick?
I vote in support of the motion, pretty much as all the reasons stated by the board here. The doesn't have any impact on the neighboring properties. The financial impact that removing this building, and also the added value of that building to the property for the applicant to be able to build his home.
Thank you. That's 5 in favor of the application.
Thank you. With that, application A24-38 is approved.
Okay. Next, we have application A-24-39 for Mr. Garza. He is seeking a proposed 14 by 20 carport to be 25 feet from the front property line.
Thank you. Any discussion or motion?
Well, I mean, the whole Lebanon Road, I mean, it is a well-traveled road. The speeds are pretty excessive. And there is a lot going on in that general area. And we've heard this case before. It's another application, but some things are very similar. We did receive, I guess, one piece of new information in terms of what DelDOT's opinion was.
Yeah, we got some DelDOT clarification. Excuse me. Yeah, I just think with the state property line and for then another 25 feet from the property line, I mean, we're 50 feet off the shoulder.
I mean, I think even if he was to remove all the shrubbery on the east side of the house and expand the garage, he still has the same safety problem.
I just don't see how it's demonstrated it's going to make it any better, other than it's going to cover a car. You're still going to have to pull in and back up. In fact, it might even be more difficult to back up into the carport than just the concrete pad.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that.
I mean, I'm just looking at it as value to the property. And I don't see any impact on the neighboring properties or a safety issue. Just my thoughts, but open to a motion.
Well, I'm thinking one safety concern I kind of thought was the distance of the pad, which would become the carport, from Lebanon Road.
Yeah, I mean, it's 50 feet from the road, so I don't think it has any visual impacts like exiting the driveway.
You know, and looking at this and looking where the property line is, you know, it's kind of misleading because of where the actual right-of-way line is established as the property line. So the right-of-way line is actually going through a portion of his yard. And some people's thinking, they may think of the property line being where the grass ends. I think that, given a distance, that is actually going to be from the travelway with that improvement. It's not like it's right out on the roadway, in my opinion. You know, it's not 25 feet from the edge of travelway.
Good point.
My recent experiences on Route 10 is there's nobody driving slow enough to notice whether there's a carport there or not.
I think the applicant did mention that it would be somewhat of an economic, I don't know if he really spelled it out as an economic impact in terms of moving the shrubbery.
I mean, to locate that, a carport on the side there, he's going to have to take down some landscaping, trees, which is, I mean, it could be a couple thousand to do that. I mean, for this applicant to put the carport, I mean, it makes sense to put it where the driveway is. And he mentioned for inclement weather conditions, stuff like that. I mean, it does add value to the property.
Well, and if the trees that are right behind the carport are still there, that is somewhat of a buffer to the neighbors.
Yes. Yeah, there it is there.
Thank you.
Well, I would just ask the board were to be inclined to support the application, that it not rely heavily on whether the carport adds value to the property. We don't have any competent evidence of value. We also don't, that's not typically a consideration for a residence. I mean, the question is whether it's been established that the desire to build a carport represents an exceptional practical difficulty.
Any other discussion or motion?
I make a motion to deny the application. I don't believe the applicant has demonstrated that the failure to remove the restriction creates an exceptional practical difficulty or unnecessary hardship. It just appears the situation is that he'll be unable to build that carport. There are some options as far as safety. So I make a motion to decline the application.
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second?
Thank you. Mr. Jones?
As much as I'd like to vote in support of this application, there's not been anything through the testimony tonight that meets one of those requirements, in my opinion. So I'll vote in support of the motion.
You're in support of the motion. Thank you. Mr. Jenkins?
I vote in support of the motion for application A24-39 based on the fact that the circumstances and conditions here do not rise to the occasion of an exceptional practical difficulty.
Thank you. Mr. Carter?
I'll vote in support of the application as well, based on the issue of exceptional practical difficulty.
Thank you. And just to clarify, you're in support of the motion to deny the application?
Yes, I'm in support of it.
Thank you. Mr. Gallo?
I vote in support of my motion.
Thank you. And Mr. Cusick?
I am not in support of the motion, as I feel like it is not impacting any neighboring properties, and I think there is a financial impact to locate this carport elsewhere.
Thank you. That's 4 in favor of the motion, 1 opposed.
With 4 in favor of the motion to deny application, what's the application number? A24-39, application A24-39 has failed.
Thank you. Our next application is A-24-40 for the Millers. They are seeking a variance from the requirement that a primary unit shall remain owner occupied unless the property is 5 acres or more to apply for a short-term rental. And again, this property is 1.5 acres.
Thank you. Any discussion, motion?
Well, when you look at the code and the conditions of the code in terms of it being 5 acres and he has 1.503, it's a pretty excessive request at this point.
I think that code is bogus. I mean, what's the difference between Airbnb versus a long-term rental? I'm in support with the applicant here, where I feel like Airbnb is probably less riskier than a long-term rental. This is my thought.
Less risky?
Yes.
Risky in what way?
As they could deteriorate the house property with having a long-term rental in there versus having short-term rental where he's going every.
So we should probably hear from staff on what the public policy is, but the public policy is not to protect the property owner from their own tenants and their risky behaviors. The public policy is related, I presume, to the intensity of the use of the property. So could we get some comments?
That is correct. So the 5 acres would provide a buffer to the neighbors. We did not look at the impact to the personal property owner when we were doing the revision to the code to include short-term rentals. It was more the impact to the neighboring property owners.
But if he has a rental property, long-term rental property that deteriorates that property, that impacts the neighboring properties. And it devalues that neighborhood.
Just on that particular point, and I'm not trying to influence the outcome. I just want to make sure we have a decision that we can support. When you drive up and down these roads, you can't tell whether the people that occupy these homes are tenants or owners. You don't know the difference. So it's really, you may not accept it, but the question is do short-term rentals create more intensity of use from which neighbors are entitled to a greater distance? So if you don't accept the justification for the code provision, you still have to determine what the exceptional practical difficulty is, as opposed to just saying that the levy court made a mistake. That's your challenge in order to make a a defensible position.
My concern with the application is that in the code, in the actual definition of a short-term rental, it seems like they address this exact situation where they talk about Airbnb or HomeAway or similar sites. So it seems like when the code was written, this scenario was considered. And I don't see any exceptional practical difficulty. I laud them for doing what they're doing for their family. That's commendable. But as far as what the code says, it almost seems like it applies specifically to this situation.
I'd just be curious to know how many short-term rentals exist in Kent County. I think it's a bunch.
Probably can't determine that, if we be honest.
So let's talk this through, the hardship. What could the hardship, so then it can't be the hardship of the applicant? Is that what you're saying, Mr. Townsend?
I don't think that's really what the exceptional practical difficulty is. I mean, there are other options. They might not be pleasant ones, but there are other options to use. It's the hardship as it relates to the property itself.
And 3.5 acres, that's a pretty big property. And it's all wooded in the back as well.
So I think we're also in the same conversation that there's nothing unique about this parcel that puts it in that category of an exceptional practical difficulty based on the composition of the parcel and what we know.
I just, I don't know. Mr. Townsend threw me for a little loop here. Oh, I mean, that we can't do the economic hardship on to be able to do the Airbnb.
I believe during part of the testimony, I asked specifically about that, and the applicant had said he would probably, if we didn't approve, he would probably have to put it up for sale.
Yeah, I see a small level of hardship here if this is not approved. Familiar with Airbnbs, and I can see a potential hardship here if this is denied, in my opinion.
Because, or can you explain?
Just as you stated, the applicant mentioned that he would probably have to put that property up for sale. They spent time and energy of producing a property that will fall under the Airbnb guidelines and hope for a 5-star rating, become a superhost, and he's put some money into this, and then with him stating that he would probably have to sell this, that's a hardship in my book.
We also didn't know how long he had intended to do the short-term rentals, because I think I asked.
Can you go back to the aerial, please? Good, thank you. What's this area zoned? Oh, AR, I got it.
AR.
Discussion, motion?
I'll make a motion to approve application A24-40 based upon the testimony of the applicant and the fact that there is a slight economic hardship impact if this variance was denied.
Second.
Have a motion and a second.
Thank you. Mr. Gallo?
I'm going to vote against the motion. I don't believe the applicant has demonstrated that a failure to remove the restriction creates an exceptional practical difficulty or unnecessary hardship as it relates to the property itself.
Thank you. Mr. Jones?
I'm going to vote in favor of the motion to support application A-24-40. Based on the testimony that I heard tonight from the applicant, I do see an economic hardship that he could be facing if this application was denied. So based on the testimony that he provided, that gave me that information, and also based on the motion provided by Mr. by Mr. Jenkins.
Thank you. Mr. Carter?
I vote in favor of the motion based on the testimony tonight and the discussion of the board.
Thank you. Mr. Jenkins?
I vote in support of application A24-40 per my motion.
Thank you. Mr. Cusick?
I vote in support of the motion for application A24-40. Per the applicant's testimony, I believe the hardship is there. The economic hardship, as well as the, I just think it preserves the property value. Doing a short-term rental versus a long-term rental for that property or for that neighborhood.
Thank you. That is 4 in favor of the motion, 1 opposed.
With 4 in favor, application A24-40 is approved.
Next, we have application A-24-41. For the Beachies, they are seeking a variance from the required 200-foot side and rear setbacks to apply for an agriculture, manufacturing, and waste service. They are seeking a variance to allow the structure for the agriculture, manufacturing, and waste service to be 110 feet from the one side property line.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Yes. Did we discuss what was going on in relationship to that eastern property line at 110 feet? What's going on there?
That's his brother's property. That's low lying. So it's like a swale there, I believe.
And the testimony was it was not well suited for a dwelling.
But if you had enough dirt, it could be. I think he said, if I had enough dirt, it could be, because I asked him.
Yeah, I mean, I think the location here, this access makes the most sense for the property. And also for the applicant to be able to expand his, be competitive with his business.
If there's no much, is there any more discussion? If not, I'm gonna make a motion.
Go for it.
I'm gonna make a motion to approve application A24-41 based upon the testimony of the applicant and the composition of the area, the nature of what's going on around it, and the low-lying property that is in question belongs to the applicant's brother.
I'll second.
Motion and a second.
Thank you. Mr. Carter?
I'll vote in favor of the motion. I think that in the agricultural area, this is not a problem. Probably a necessary thing to do.
Thank you. Mr. Gallo?
I vote in favor of the motion. I believe the applicant demonstrated that this would be, to move it elsewhere would create a hardship based on the design of the land.
Thank you. Mr. Jones?
I'm going to vote in favor of the motion and support application A-24-41. Based on the testimony that was given tonight, based on the amount of dirt that it would take to move that building would certainly create an economic hardship. And it just seems like that where he has that building proposed is the right spot for that property. Again, with the hardship, I'm going to vote in favor and based on the motion that was made.
Thank you. Mr. Jenkins?
Vote in support of application A-24-42, or I'm sorry, 41, per my motion.
Thank you. Mr. Cusick?
I vote in motion, or in support of the motion for application A-24-41. I think it fits within the immediate vicinity with agriculture land around it. No impact on the neighboring property, as well as the location of that building, I think makes the most sense. The access to it and allows the applicant to be efficient and stay competitive within his business.
Thank you. That's 5 in favor of the motion.
Thank you. With 5 in favor, application A-24-41 is approved.
Okay. And last but not least, we have application A-24-42 for the Jacksons. They are seeking a variance from the required 25-foot rear setback to construct an addition to be 10.5 feet from the rear property line. And again, they are seeking for a screened-in porch to go over the existing deck.
Thank you. Any discussion or motion?
Well, when we look at this parcel in question and we look at the neighbors on both sides, you have similar activity going on, and it just seems like the right thing to do.
I was happy to see that the staff had written to the developer to recommend in the future that they could get approval for the blanket approval for these kinds of things, and would save everybody a lot of grief and aggravation.
Any other thoughts? I'll make a motion to support application A-24-42 for a couple of reasons. A, the testimony of the applicant, him and his wife, and the composition of what is currently going on in that subdivision, and the support that has come extensively from his neighbors.
Second.
Motion and a second.
Thank you. Mr. Jones?
I'll vote in favor and support application A-24-42. Based on the testimony that was given tonight, he did kind of outlay, a hardship as far as the health is concerned. We all know what mosquitoes are and things of that nature. I'll vote in favor.
Thank you. Mr. Gallo?
I'm going to vote in favor of the motion, primarily because of the support from the neighbors in support of the variance.
Thank you. Mr. Carter?
I'll vote in favor of the motion based on the testimony tonight and the support of the neighbors.
Thank you. Mr. Jenkins?
I vote in support of A-24-42 per my motion.
Thank you. And Mr. Cusick?
I vote in support of the motion for application A-24-42. No impact on the neighboring properties. The overwhelming support of the neighbors here tonight, as well as the applicant's testimony with his health condition, which I feel is a hardship.
Thank you. That's 5 in favor of the motion.
Thank you. With 5 in favor, application A24-42 is approved.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.